Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Saturday, September the 14th, 2024. Welcome to episode 83 of the Wise Guy Sports Show. I am one of your hosts. I am the Big Rican on Sports, Mike Martinez. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in my co-host, Mr. JC Blue Note. And James, as you can see, I'm being a little petty with my shirt this evening.
Nothing petty about it, and we've got quite a bit to talk about with that.
We really do. But first things first, how was your week, James?
It was long.
So normal.
Long.
Why do we automatically go to Chappelle with the first one now?
Because I'm not actually what I was telling you off air. Is you're not going to get yet.
Okay. I will say this, James. I do enjoy the shirt you're wearing this evening. As that anniversary hit us on Wednesday. It's been 23 years since 9/11 on Wednesday, which means next Saturday when we come to you live at 9 p.m., it'll be about a quarter of the way into the show when we will have the 23rd anniversary of the moment that kickstarted the healing. And of course, that is the home run hit by Mike Piazza off Queens native Steve Karsay, deep into the Queens night.
Second thing.
Well, what was the first thing?
SmackDown 2 days later in Houston.
That's right, SmackDown. You are correct. Oh, let's say this: the first thing that kickstarted the healing in New York City.
Yes.
Okay. But that's why I forgot SmackDown was on Thursday night. They didn't preempt. But as James mentioned, we have a ton to get to tonight, and we are going to start with the reason why I'm wearing that shirt. So, Jim, why don't you tell us where we're heading, and let's get to the hat trick.
It's the three biggest topics in the world of sports from the last week. Get ready for the Wise Guy's hat trick.
After you, sir.
It's not just week one, because we did have some news that actually came out in the last 48 hours. So this is going to be encompassing the entire first week.
Yeah, and let's start with the one all the way to the right, Jim, and a scary moment from Thursday Night Football between the Bills and the Dolphins. Okay, I'm going to open this. I've taken a lot of shots at this guy since he was at Alabama. I never, ever want to see him on a football field again, and it has nothing to do with his play. This is ridiculous.
Did anyone else also catch the irony of who made the tackle?
That's what killed me about it. And of course, the internet's made jokes about it too, but which is extremely distasteful. But
it's not even that. It's the fact that the way that Tagovailoa led with his head, Damar Hamlin barely made contact. He didn't really make a tackle. He was just who Tua ran into and then went down, and it's actually contact. So Hamlin did not really hit him. Hamlin was just there to get run into.
Yeah, and it was his arm too. I want to say that, and I've watched the replay of it over and over again. I want to ask you your opinion, because I'm sure you've watched the same thing, especially you being a Bills fan. And I still am very shocked I watched more of that game than you did, Mr. Bill.
Yeah, because I didn't actually turn it on until the second half.
I watched most of the first half because Bobby fell asleep early. What's that?
I think a skunk just sprayed down the block.
It's either that or bad weed.
No, this is skunk.
Oh, okay. I got one for you in the blast. I'm going to tell you it's going to be even funnier than that. But if you notice, Damar actually moved.
Yes.
He took his chest and body out of it, and Tua hit his arm. But the stiff arms, the whole thing that we've seen, all three concussions with Tua that have been highly publicized. Everyone from Raiders coach Antonio Pierce to his college coach, now ESPN game day analyst Nick Saban, have all said it's time. And I'm of the same opinion. Tua has small children. I'm sure the insurance policies on that contract will pay him out to where he will have generational money and he will not have to worry about it. But
From a business standpoint, the Dolphin, he would still be guaranteed all that money. It would actually be something that the Dolphins would have to pay him, but it wouldn't actually count against the salary cap if he has to retire.
that's true. But I will say this, Jim, and I think you and I are in agreement. But that needs to be the last time that Tua takes the field as an NFL player. And we're going to say that about a couple other people when we get to the other part of this, but it's got nothing to do with this. He hasn't played terrible. I have my issues with the way his numbers are compiled, but again, he has not played terrible. But this is scary. It's just straight, absolutely fucking scary.
You know, when the NHL mandated, and now it's going to be mandatory for next year, all players wear neck guards. The AHL did it. They keep improving the helmets, but it's still car crash material. And kudos to his name eludes me right now, the Colts wide receiver who is now openly wearing the Guardian caps, which those padded those padded helmet caps, which would significantly lower the concussion capability. Plus, also with the size of them, regardless of how ridiculous it looks, you have to start. I mean, this is something that transcends football. We've actually, I mean, as hockey fans, we all remember how Paul Correa's career got cut short. We all remember how Eric Lindros got knocked unconscious, which was his 6th or 7th concussion at that point, and then still continued to play for several years. For Bernie Kosar having all those concussions and the fact that he's suffering from early onset CTE, and possibly contributed to his stroke. There's a point where pride and being a tough guy really has to take take a back seat to something, which is why the more distant we get from it, we start giving more and more kudos to guys like Andrew Luck, who left, at the peak of their career, to be able to, whether it's the losing of the desire or being able to do it, so this way your children can watch you, grow up with, without you having to take care of them. That really has to be, they've got to start being established. If this is something where, they're going to, if I were the NFL and Roger Goodell and the owners, I'd actually put a lot of pressure on them, because the talk was that on the broadcast, Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth even said that it's now an extended kind of a mini bye week, because the Dolphins won't play until next Monday. So they have the better part of 10 full days off to be able to see if Tua clears concussion protocol. If it's a minor concussion, I could almost see it, but I would actually start putting a lot of pressure on them to deactivate him, at least for the better part of a month. And then when he comes back, I don't know if you can mandate him to wear a Guardian cap as a quarterback, but I would definitely start to, and then if he suffers another one, yeah, absolutely force him into retirement. But let's see how he grades out with this one.
Yeah, and I understand that. I mean, his coach had the best line, and Mike McDaniel's a lot of things. He's eccentric. Someone said that he is the fastest one from ball boy to Miami drug kingpin with the way that he dresses that they've ever seen. He said to him, "You're the quarterback of your family." And as someone who, I have 3, again, definitely different ends of the spectrum, but I don't know how he laces him up again. I don't. I just don't get it. Dude, you got enough money and you can become fun. The SEC network would hire you in a fucking minute, dude. Become a Tebow 2.0. Seriously. At least you're out because of Andrew. He's out because he was garbage. But I don't know how he does it again, Jim. I don't know, and I'm at a loss. I can't even fathom it. Like I hit my head and I'm like, dude, football? What are you crazy?
Yeah, for someone who's had 2 or 3 of them himself, it's and especially with my history with brain issues,
Yep.
it's definitely not anything that and mine were well into, were well over 20 years ago. Um, I got hit in the head with a ball bat once
Oh,
on a backswing. I got split wide open. Um, I was catcher in a softball league when I was in 4th grade, and one of the aluminum bats. So, and we didn't have helmets because it was slow pitch.
nope.
Yeah. So, but it's not anything to mess around with. I don't care if you're the face of a franchise, a multi-billion-dollar franchise, one of the most historic franchises in the history of the National Football League. Um, you
Well
got
played.
you got to put things into perspective, man.
Agreed. Agreed. That's why I think it's time for Tua to say thanks, but no thanks. Um, we'll go from one guy who should go on IR to another who is on IR. And is it really coming as a shock to no one he's hurt again?
Arguably, he's the best all-around, most versatile, dynamic player in football when he's healthy, but it's all a matter of here's a guy who, quite honestly, should have a couple of MVPs, except for the fact that he's injury prone. I mean, had he been at 100% last year, maybe they break their 30-year Super Bowl drought, and maybe they put maybe they put a crack in the Chiefs dynasty. Um, I think it's the right move, but I think also San Francisco is so loaded
Oh
right
my
now
God.
that you're not going to see them really miss a beat.
No, I don't think they will either. It shocks me that they're this good. On that San Francisco line, did you see what they did to Mike Greenberg the other day?
I saw something about it, but I didn't get a chance to completely
All
watch
right.
it through.
So Greenberg has an Aaron Rodgers jersey framed in the studio for Get Up.
Yeah.
Well, Damian Woody's there the day after the Jets lose to San Francisco, and someone has replaced it with a Brock Purdy jersey, and all of a sudden Greeny catches it. What the hell is that?
I saw the clip on ESPN's homepage. I did not get a chance to watch it.
Oh, he lost his mind. But let's go
anytime
to
you
the.
control Mike Greenberg and get away with it, more power to you.
Again, he's like the only saving grace that network has because of how good and how long he's been there and doing it. But yeah, when you can mess with Greeny and you can see the neuroses he has for his teams come out, it's actually quite comical.
Which is, rather hilarious considering. Let's move to that first thing. That was the underlying theme of week 1. We had some horrifically bad quarterback play. Rodgers was bad. We're not going to talk about the guy in New York. We're not going to talk about the other guy in New York just yet. We know how bad Deshaun Watson was. We know how bad the situation was in Pittsburgh. We know how bad.
Well, let me rewind it a second. Here's the difference. Justin Fields did everything he needed to do to win that game. The other ones we're talking about, be it Billy or, Old Man Winter or Danny freaking Stupid or
Pesos.
Danny Pesos. That's right.
Or what did we dub him? Danny Rubles.
Danny Rubles, correct. Because he's got to be a Russian troll at this point.
And just for that, for the rest of the first half of the show, we're gonna go.
You are fucking great. So yeah, Danny Rubles. But here's the one that gets me. And Alex, I'm sorry. He played like shit. Caleb Williams was fucking terrible.
And they won.
But that's what's killing me. I wish we could have Alex on tonight. I should have mentioned it to him. but he knows I would have gone after Caleb because Caleb was absolute dog shit, for lack of a better term. He was terrible. I mean, he should have just taken the nail polish off at fucking halftime and given somebody else the goddamn ball. But they have made this roster 10 times what it was when Justin Fields was a quarterback and they got a W, which again is all that matters. This isn't college football. This isn't where you got to put style points up. They got the W. Now, having said that, he's piss poor. And it wasn't even that it was because it didn't look like it was a rookie thing with him Sunday. It looked like he had no grasp of the speed of the game. And for you to be the number one pick in the best situation in the history of the NFL to play that terribly, that's got to send up some warning flags. And it automatically makes the Justin Fields problem the front office's issue. Automatically.
I've actually, while you were going through that, for the week 1 starters, I've actually gone on to ESPN and just pulled up the numbers. The bottom 5 in terms of passing yards for starters in week 1, Justin Herbert, 144. Bo Nix, 138, which is expected because he's going to go through some growing pains. Will Levis, 127, which is understandable because the book is still out on Levis because Will Levis has absolutely nothing to throw to.
Just Bo Nix or Justin Herbert, to be fair.
Right. Jacoby Brissett, 121. Caleb Williams, 93. He was the only starter not to reach 100 yards.
I mean, come on.
Bryce Young threw for 161. Kyler Murray threw for 162. I mean, Deshaun even threw for 169, although a lot of it was garbage time. And I mean, Dak Prescott goes out and signs the largest deal in history and only throws for 179 yards. But we'll talk about that one in a minute because we're gonna look back at some of these games.
Hey, who had the best numbers from week 1?
This is a little deceptive because some of these Matthew Stafford threw for 317, Patty Mahomes 291.
Who had the best completion percentage in week 1? Say it. Say it.
Derek Carr.
Did he really?
Yes, 82.6.
What was Baker?
88 flat.
Wait, he completed 80% of his passes. He had a quarterback rating of 144.9. I only know that
146.4.
146.4. Oh, you mean the guy who called Ken Carman and set him off was wrong?
I don't think it was the fact that he was looking to troll Carman. I think it was the fact that Carman knew the call was going to come, and it was the first one after a blowout.
Yeah, and the thing is, Carman also knows that this move was bullshit to begin with. He said it the whole time. But then again, there's our buddy Tony Grossi, that piece of garbage. Listen, the terrible quarterback play in week 1 was, first of all, it's a little bit unnerving to me, especially with the money that was handed out this offseason to quarterbacks. And with the amount of quarterbacks we had to go in week, you could have kept it up. That would have been cool.
That one's is animated, and I know we've had issues with that one before.
Gotcha. With the insane amount of money the quarterbacks are being paid now, and with the insane amount of quarterbacks that went in the first round, it's very, very troubling. I think the only first-round quarterback who did not play was Michael Penix. And Michael Penix is in a situation where Kirk Cousins, who looked like hell and looked like he had an Achilles injury, I think I'm right. Oh, Drake May didn't play. Sorry.
Yeah, Drake May did not play. So let's start at the top. Caleb played. Jaden Daniels played. Drake May did not.
Penix did not.
Penix did not. Bo Nix did.
JJ McCarthy's out for the year.
JJ is out for the year.
Oh, by the way, Sam Darnold looked fucking
great.
And
there was one more because there were 6 taken, weren't there?
JJ, Drake, Caleb, Jaden, Bo Nix, and Penix. The sixth one was Bo Nix. And by the way, Sam Darnold.
Jaden, Penix, JJ, Bonix. Could have sworn there was another. Okay, yeah, you're right. Why was I thinking there was a sixth quarterback taken?
Because it probably could have been. By the way, I want to give one kudos out before we move to the next segment. Sam Darnold looked awesome.
Yes.
In Minnesota. He really did. I want to give kudos to Sam Darnold because not only was he drafted to that abysmal fucking franchise in New Jersey, he then went to Carolina with Baker, and they were terrible. Darnold was Purdy's backup last year, wasn't he?
Correct.
So good for Sam Darnold. Absolutely. I hope he turns this year into a place he can go start somewhere else.
I'm not sure if you, and all relative kidding aside with this, did you see the Barnstormer brand clip regarding Tua in the last day?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Because he actually mentioned who are they going to get now, and there's actually people saying, what about Ryan Tannehill at that point? And I mean, they're right because of the weapons that he has. All he has to do is just not go out there and fuck up.
Yeah.
Regardless of whoever they bring in.
That's true.
I mean, because right now they're running Skylar Thompson. Who, ironically enough, was 8 of 14 for 80 yards in relief and still nearly had a better game in 2.5 quarters than Caleb had the entire week.
We need to move on because I'm going to go in on him in a minute.
We have to bring it up.
Wait. In the almost immortal words of the Vice President of the United States, this motherfucker.
This former president.
She should have said it. Can I just say, all joking aside, all kidding aside, I think the next person in an MRI tube for their brain is Jimmy Haslam.
For somebody who had them weekly for the better part of 4 years, you're right, but that's also punishment I never wish upon another human being.
Agreed. When I had mine done, I fell asleep.
They wouldn't let me fall asleep.
Well, mine was for a knee. Yours was for your head. That's a different animal.
Yeah.
But this fucking hillbilly meth head, Jesus fucking Christ. What in Christ's name? Did they not see this coming?
So if you've been living under a rock, there were new allegations filed very late in the week. I think it was It was
Thursday.
What's that?
It's Thursday.
Yeah, that Deshaun Watson is now being sued by an anonymous woman stemming back to 2020 when he was a member of the Houston Texans, which for more sexual assault, more specifically, the way that this reads, it's rape, even though in the state of Texas, they classify them the same way.
Well, let's put two pieces of context on where you just said. Number one, it's the state of Texas. He's a quarterback. They've never done anything to anybody who slung a football in that fucking state, no matter what they did. So that's number one. For everybody who's going to watch this and tell me he didn't get indicted, fuck you. Number two, again, I'll ask the question, James. Did no one see this coming?
The fact that this was also over 4 years, because as the story goes, Watson met this woman online and wanted to meet for dinner. She did not feel comfortable going out in public with him being the superstar quarterback in the NFL at the time that he was. and was a very well-known and prominent member of the Houston community, um, and decided to have dinner at her place, to where he became aggressive, reportedly physically and also verbally. Um, and we won't go into the details because you all have seen them. Um, and is now being sued, and there is now a talk that her attorney will be meeting with the NFL before long, and there could be video documentation of something. We don't to the extent of what this video is, nobody knows yet.
No, and let's be very clear about one thing. We are not legal people. We are not commenting on any legality of this. We are merely giving our opinion of the piece of shit that he is. And let me be very frank. I have said on this show 1,000 times, I will not root for this team until he is gone. I got news for you. If the Haslam's fight for him to stay, I may not root for this team again.
Well, at this particular point, that's actually where the second part of this comes into play. After Watson had one of the absolute worst, probably next to
God awful.
I would say probably next to Daniel Jones, had the most disappointing opening weekend in the NFL, because Caleb, we knew as a rookie, was going to actually have those growing pains. We expected him to be a little bit better, but for the number one pick in the draft, for a team that basically kind of rebuilt everything from scratch the way that they did, and as much turnover, you knew that he was not going to go out and ball out week one. Things are looking up in Chicago, but the Giants are an absolute mess. So could we actually be talking about, by the middle of this season, that we could see Tua with that guaranteed contract no longer part of the Dolphins? Could we see Daniel Jones no longer part of the New York Giants? And after Sunday, if he comes out and has the same level of performance, could we no longer see Deshaun Watson suiting up as a Cleveland Brown?
Well, let's do two things here. Let me discuss my opinion of his performance. Besides god awful dumpster fire dog shit, let's say this. Number one, Dallas is a very, very good defensive unit. Let's throw that out there, because you can't say one without the other. You can't. As much as I hate the son of a bitch, he played one of the better defenses in the league. Having said that, you were guaranteed the most money in the world as a football player until 24 hours before that game was played, when it was given to Dak Prescott. Not only were you outplayed by the guy who's now making $1 million more than you over that term of the contract, not only did you get exposed, you didn't even look like a fucking starting quarterback. For all the people in Cleveland that bitched about the guy whose number I'm wearing right now, Baker never looked that bad. He had some bad stat lines because he tried to do too much when he was hurt. Baker never looked lost. And I watched every video clip of every single game. I listened to Jim Donovan every time Baker was under center, including the first night against the Jets. He never looked fucking lost. Deshaun looked fucking lost. And you had guys on the different shows like, is it Chris Long or Kyle Long, the one with the hair that does the podcast?
Chris.
All right, so Chris,
Howie Long's son.
Yeah, and because he's got the brother who's the bald one that played in the league too.
Right.
Okay, so Long was on Rich Eisen, and he said they looked at how much often Deshaun got hit in Houston. I don't want to fucking hear it. You can talk about all the time he missed, self-inflicted. You can talk about all the times he was hit. Well, I'm going to go out on the limb and say, well, some of it was because he didn't know how to read a fucking defense and tried to run. And third and foremost, it was terrible, Jim. I watched the highlight package. I watched the entire, like, the condensed game thing they do on YouTube.
Yes.
Holy shit. He looked like one of us trying to play quarterback in high school.
I got invited basically within about 24 hours out to my cousins on the west side. I did not partake. I ended up filming it. You've probably seen the videos if you go to my Instagram. My cousin and all their friends, and this is the cousin that just got married last month.
Mhm.
They had resorted to Flip Cup by halftime.
By the way, who was the one? Was there someone with a blonde female with like a bob type haircut,
That
really
was my
short?
cousin Elena in the
She's very
burning
good.
helmet.
She's very good.
Yes.
I will give her
Actually,
credit.
blonde with that's I want to say, because there were two of them. That was either um my cousin's wife's best friend, or was she wearing a ball cap?
Might have been.
Okay, if she was wearing a ball cap, then that was actually my cousin Elena's wife, Allison,
All right, so
who
Allison's got some
who
skills
I
at flip
gotta
cup.
say, Allison, we actually texted earlier. MIZZOU.
ZOU. Very good. Oh, by the way, good game, by the way. While on that topic, I want to give a shout out to my childhood friend, the athletic director at the University of Memphis, Dr. Edward Scott, and their huge win today. Well, it's Florida State. Who knows? Go ahead. Anyways, so Ed, tip of the cap from the wise guys, bud. So let's talk about the question at the end there. Could this be his final game with the Browns? So Mike Florio had something very interesting to say about that.
Real quick before we jump into that, along those same lines, as you were actually talking about really how bad it was on the field, I really don't think even paled in comparison as to how bad the analysis and the critiquement was in the 24 hours afterwards. There
He
was nobody on Cleveland radio, there was nobody on national radio or TV who stuck up for him.
no,
Every single person, and these allegations hadn't even come to the surface yet, and they were saying it was one of the absolute worst quarterback performances they'd ever. Well, actually, I want to say the allegations may have come out on Monday.
no, they came out later in the week. This was Tuesday, Wednesday, or even Wednesday, Thursday, because you and I, when we did our morning call yesterday to discuss today, it had to have been Wednesday, Thursday. But Mike Florio had something interesting. There is a clause in Deshaun's contract where if something came to light that he did not disclose to the Cleveland Browns, they can then terminate his contract and the guarantees go away. So, Jim, let's speculate on that just for a minute if we could. If that is the case, I want to ask you your opinion on something. Ladies and gentlemen, I have not brought this up to him. I just thought of it now because I've actually had some caffeine in my brain this afternoon. Now, James, would you say fuck the season and go for the number one pick and take the best quarterback coming out of college if you are the Cleveland Browns and you can terminate his contract?
No, because number one, you still have a lot of good talent, and you're still going to be getting your two feature backs back into the lineup in just under a month's time. You put a lot of money out there into the turnover with this roster and adding some pieces, parts. And this team may actually, for all we know, this team may end up playing better under Jameis Winston and potentially Dorian Thompson-Robinson than they will play under Deshaun Watson. As we've actually seen that they actually went out and basically put together a system and with an offensive coordinator with Ken Dorsey, who he did wonders for Josh Allen in Buffalo up until he basically let Josh Allen try to be gunslinger, which actually ended up running them out of the playoffs against Kansas City 2 of the last 3 years. But the idea that they're going to tank, I don't particularly think that you're going to be bad enough to because there's still a couple of other really bad projected teams out there. So I don't know if you're going to be able to race to the bottom. But I gotta say, and this is not trying to sound homerish, but somebody like a Dylan Gabriel or a Brady Cook or what's his name in Georgia would look real good in a Browns uniform next year.
Speaking of Carson Beck, by the way, Georgia's down 6-3 at the half to Kentucky. Let me see this. You're absolutely right. They do
But
have
LSU was actually down big at the half and came back and won anyway. This is the SEC. Anything happens.
Yeah, and we were watching that game at the birthday party Bobby was at. The bowling alley projector onto the giant wall by where the pins are is what the game was. This was a beautiful thing.
Did it remind you of like and here's a name from the past, and you were around when they were there, Damon's?
Yes. It reminded me.
Nothing better than sitting at Damon's on a Saturday and or Sunday, having dinner and watching 17 games all at the same time.
Yes. Let me say this to you don't think they can race to the bottom. How many of those shit teams you're talking about have the third hardest schedule in the NFL?
I agree, but realistically, they've got enough talent to where it's very Miami-like, and the fact that they've got a better defense than
That's
Miami,
true.
that they actually would be able to bring in somebody who just doesn't need to screw the pooch and just game manage, and they can eat, and they could probably go 500.
Well, now that Jameis,
at worst, I would think.
Yeah, now that Jameis can fucking see, I'm sure Jameis could do it. But let's go one step further. Will they? Probably not. Should they? Because Jim, this restarts the clock. If he goes, this restarts the clock on a franchise that Myles Garrett's in year 7. Denzel Ward's in year 6. Newsom's in year 5, 4 or 5. What year is Zadarius in? Nick Chubb is in year 6.
And coming off of massive knee reconstruction.
Bitonio and Wills have already missed time. Not Bitonio, I'm sorry. Conklin and Wills have already missed time.
And are also in double-digit years and probably only have a few more years left.
Yep. And then, as you say, Bitonio and Conklin are in double-digit years. Only have a short amount of time left.
Dustin Hopkins is in year 11, although we've actually seen kickers can kick into their 40s.
Geez, Vinatieri's still kicking somewhere. Do they have a window to where they can do the franchise reset now and be successful quicker? Or are we talking they either go for it now, or we're talking another 5 to 7 years of the Cleveland Browns being the laughing stock of the league and trying to build a new fucking stadium?
Well, let me answer that by taking this a completely different route.
Okay.
This is what I'm going to like to call choose your own wisey adventure.
Ooh, a new thing.
So let's actually start all the dominoes here. Let's go right down the pipe.
Okay.
Deshaun goes out and plays decent tomorrow. What happens? I'm just saying, in the immediate future, what's the next reaction that you would actually think would happen? He goes out and he doesn't shit the bed and they win tomorrow.
Twofold. For the Browns, it's okay, maybe this thing can be stopped. Well, yeah, basically state of execution. The other part of it is Sunshine wasn't worth the fucking money they gave him. But go on.
Deshaun goes out and shits the bed tomorrow.
They're finding a way to get out of that contract. Because now the thing is, now the fan base is starting to revolt.
He goes out and shits the bed. Do you cut him knowing that you have to pay him, or do you just basically deactivate him every single week?
So it's basically get rid of him or do what Houston did to him for an entire year to teach him not to try and take his ball and go home. Deactivate him. deactivate. And here's the thing.
because you're still going to have to pay him right as it stands right now. You're still going to have to pay him regardless.
Exactly.
And we have been predicting now for the last 18 months that year 3 was going to be the year that basically that this he was not going to see the end of that contract. He was going to start looking for a way out. Unfortunately, now this is something where I don't think he's looking for a way out because he knows this will be the last opportunity he gets to be a franchise quarterback.
No.
It's going to be something that he's having it ripped out of his hands against his will.
What, you think franchise quarterback? If he gets gunned because of these allegations, he's done. No one's going to sign him ever again.
I agree.
His career is over.
Right. I completely and totally agree in that aspect. So we actually have decided either they're going to cut him or they're going to deactivate him. Do you try to contend for a playoff spot or do you, because of the fact that also you actually have to also see how Nick Chubb's going to come back? Is he going to come back at 100%? Are you going to be able to ease him in? Are you going to put him on a pitch clock, a pitch count, so to speak? Because if he comes back anywhere near, if he comes back to 80% of where he was, not so much last year, but the year before that, where he missed the rushing title by less than 50 yards at that point, I think it was. And they were in the play, and they knocked on the edge of the playoffs. Even with well, then again, no, because 2 years ago was was his suspension year, and they were nowhere near that. Because of the fact that you've only got him signed through 1 year. Here's also the other aspect that if I were the Browns, you were kind of hoping that any part of these allegations are true to where they don't, at this point, they will welcome all the litigation in the world for him trying to recoup that money. Because if they were to cut him, his dead money cash cap hit is nearly the equivalent of the cap next year.
No, it is. And
I want to say he's on the hook for $76 million next year with incentives and everything. And the fact that they deferred part of that to signing bonus money.
Exactly. So let me go here with you. If whether he shits the bed or not, if it comes out that this was an allegation that was not disclosed, and they have been trying to settle this, and finally Busby's like, "Fuck you, we're going public," they have to cut him, and they have to cut him for cause, and they have to recoup that money moving forward.
The problem is that if they cut him, the only way that they get out of that is if the contract can be voided, because otherwise they have to pay him.
That's what Mike Florio was saying. There is a clause in Deshaun Watson's contract that if there is an allegation that was not disclosed to the Browns
in writing
that comes out, they have the ability to cut him and void his contract.
Right. Yeah. There's a difference because just cutting him,
you got to pay
for play or deactivating him, you still have to pay him. If you actually cut and void his contract, if any of this comes out as true, it's a lost season for the Browns, you would think on paper, but in a way. But here's also the other aspect. You cut him and you don't make the playoffs, and let's say, okay, now here's the next part of the choose your own adventure. You cut him and the contract gets voided regardless of what you do. You're around 500. Do you blow this thing up? Because at that particular point, you're also going to see that if this thing bottoms out, and I might kind of be mixing the choose your own adventure here. Do you actually blow up the roster or the front office? Because one of them is going to have to change. And here, and let me put the two questions in. Let me ask the question two different ways and get your answer on both. You're at 500. You're hovering around 500. You miss the playoffs. Do you blow up the roster or the front office? If you bottom completely out, do you blow up the front office or do you blow the whole thing up?
Okay, let me be very clear about something. And I hope this gets back to that hillbilly fuck. If you blow up the front office because this quarterback blew up in your face, you are the worst owner in the history of professional sports because everybody and their mother knows that Deshaun Watson was your fucking call. Remember,
I
folks.
mean, he'd be in the top 10. I don't think he'd be the worst ever because we still got to remember there's Al Davis, Jerry Jones, and several other owners in the
Hey,
history,
Jim.
and Dan Snyder.
Hey, Dan, or Jim. You said Dan. I said it back. I'm sorry. Hey, Jim. What are two things that Al Davis and Jerry Jones have in common?
Yes, they have won
Lombardi
Super Bowls.
trophies.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is where I'm going with this. When Andrew Berry was running the negotiations, Deshaun Watson was out on the Cleveland Browns. It is widely publicized. When Jimmy Haslam got involved and said, give him every dime he wants, he was in. Andrew Berry can't make the call on a $230 million guaranteed contract. He can't. That was Jimmy. You just signed your best head coach and GM combo since Ernie Accorsi and Marty Schottenheimer. You can build something. You've won.
You remembered this time.
I did. I mean, I really do feel bad about that the other night. I really do. Because I love Marty Schottenheimer.
There's a gleam.
Although
the one thing is we always remember about him. That was our favorite soundbite from him, but it was also what's the worst thing that we all remember Marty for? The establishment of the prevent defense. Because what does the prevent defense do?
Prevent you from winning. Yeah, the drive. Anyways,
shut up.
Sorry. That's all right. We'll get in the next section. We'll get into something somebody brought up to me the other day. But all kidding aside, you cannot blow up the front office.
Do you think the next part of the choose your own adventure here, does he blow up the front office out of spite rather than actually admit his mistake?
I think it's possible, but I think you would see a good amount of trades. I will say this. I think the only two players that survive if they blow the roster up are Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett.
I don't even know if Denzel would be part of that because Denzel is probably one or two concussions himself away from calling it a career.
Agreed. I'm saying in this choose your adventure, Denzel's healthy. One, you have to keep Denzel to keep some kind of goodwill with Northeast Ohio. He is Northeast Ohio's boy. It's Nordonia, Columbus, Cleveland. You cannot take that away, especially if you're still going to pursue the stadium. Myles Garrett is the face of the Cleveland Browns. Not Kevin Stefanski, not Andrew Berry, not Jimmy and D. Haslam, not Deshaun Watson, not even Denzel. Myles Garrett's the face of the Browns. He is their captain. The fact that it's a D end is a problem.
I don't know. J.J. Watt was the face of the Houston franchise even when Deshaun was.
That's true. Okay, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Okay, I'm with you. You would see roster turnover in Cleveland like you've never seen.
Because you just signed Judy for the long term. You don't have Amari.
No, so Judy would be the only receiver left in the room. You would be mixing and filling. Now they would have a ton of cap space where they could bring guys in.
Right.
But so it basically your offense now, I think at that point in time, you force Joel Bitonio to retire or you release him. Jed Wills is gone. DeJuan Jones is the only one left out of this offensive line group.
And he's played like shit straight out of camp.
Yeah, he has. So it's a roster blow up for me.
I think the defense is pretty well set because you got a lot of those guys locked up. Okoronkwo's locked up. Za'Darius is locked up. Maurice Hurst is locked up. Miles is still under contract for a few years. You've got
JOK
for a few more. You've got JOK. You've got Newsome. You've got a lot of the core guys, but I will say this much. The one guy I think on Sunday that they probably miss more than anybody else is Sione Takitaki.
Dude. I think it's a roster blow up, and it's an offensive roster blow up.
Speaking of which, very, very quickly, I want to actually give my own personal shout out. Andrew Siciliano called himself a very good game for what we were able to tune into up until the feed kept going in and out, and we actually had to cut the radio simulcast away and then just go inside and watch it on TV on Sunday. But I will have that simulcast while they're down in Jacksonville tomorrow. So kudos to Andrew Siciliano, his first official game as the full-time play-by-play with the Cleveland Browns.
I might actually have that on here, even streaming, because it's in Jacksonville, and that's all the local stuff I get is Jacksonville, even on streaming. But yeah, it's going to be a roster blow up, Jim. Because if he blew up the front office, and I'm Andrew Barry, I'm writing the book.
Final question, gun to your head. What do you think? What do you want to happen? And in your heart of hearts and head of heads, what do you think is going to happen?
I think for once, my head, my heart, and what's going to happen are all the same. He's fucking gone. He's gone. No matter what the thing is, if he walks out onto the field in Jacksonville tomorrow and plays like he did last week, he's done. The fact that he's in Cleveland is because Jimmy Haslam listens to the fucking national media.
Cut or voided?
I'm here so I won't get fined.
I should say cut, voided, or deactivated.
Beast mode.
I'm going to say if he plays the exact same way, I think there's a possibility if this game gets out of hand, we're going to see Jameis sometime in the second half. And I think he would be deactivated later on in the week. And they will let the legal proceedings and everything and the evidence to come out when Tony Busby meets with the league offices. And that's where we'll see, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. We will actually see, you're certainly not, it's not something that you're going to see him, benched Sunday, deactivated Monday, and the contract voided on Tuesday. We'll probably see more things come out as the season progresses. As we remember, when he was suspended, not last year, but the year before, how more and more evidence and more and more stories came out game by game by game. But by the time he returned for Houston, everything was basically on the table at that point. It would be something that we would probably get a lot more information about later on in the season, to where you might start seeing the talk of potentially voiding or negotiating a buyout at that particular point, to where maybe he gives, because nobody else is going to pick up that contract. And even though it's guaranteed, could it also be something that could a potential negotiated buyout to where some of that guaranteed money comes back for him to be able to just leave and go somewhere else immediately?
The problem with your analogy is no one's going to take a chance on it.
I completely agree. But I actually even saw somebody throw out there, somebody call Miami and see if they're actually, if Tua has to retire, could Miami actually be dumb enough to be able to take a flyer on him, to be able to give up maybe 2 first-round picks and kick in some cash?
If anyone gives up a first-round pick for him, they ought to be taken out back and done Boondock Saints style, because it's just fucking stupid.
Well, the thing is that if they actually, I would say that would be probably the fourth and least likely scenario, is that Tua has to retire with that, and then they actually have absolutely nothing, and they don't want to waste the season. So could they possibly get the Browns on the phone and give up maybe 2 first-round picks? I'm not saying fleece the the Browns would fleece Miami like Houston fleeced Cleveland, but you'd probably have to give up 2 firsts and probably a 3 or a 4 to be able to make them the money equal out.
Jim, I wouldn't trade 9/7 and a fucking bucket of deflated footballs for that piece of garbage.
I completely and totally agree, but the problem is that you're not going to trade him for what he's got remaining on that contract for a 6 or a 7. The league would not allow it. There would have to be at least a guaranteed 1. There would actually have to be, I want to say, for that to work out, if a team would be desperate enough to trade for him, there would have to be 2 guaranteed picks in the first 2 rounds. They don't have to be next year, but they would have to be to be able to get some level of compensation back for that if they were going to take on any part of that contract, even if it's deferred, even if the Browns pay 50%, whoever trades with them, whether it's Minnesota, whether it's Miami, they have to give up at minimum a 1 and a 2.
Okay. Now let me put the last piece to this here, and then let's jump into the next because we're already 56 minutes in. How do I put this eloquently? Oh, I know. They couldn't trade Baker because of the contract they signed Deshaun to, and no one wanted to do the Browns a favor because of what Jimmy Haslam did to reset the market. Do you honestly fucking think anyone is going to make a deal where they have to give up a prime draft pick for that fucking dumpster fire who hasn't played well at all? And 2, that you thought there was a lot of baggage coming to Cleveland. Now there's more. Because I got news for you. They suspended him 11 the first time. What the fuck do you think Goodell's going to do now?
I do agree with that, but you got to figure if somebody's going to trade for him, I would say the only way that he would get traded would be the Miami situation, because you got to figure Miami just would need semi-competent quarterback play. And, he'd be down south. He wouldn't have to worry about the elements. He might actually kind of, it might kind of work for him a little bit, because you also figure if Miami's going to give up a number 1, it's certainly not going to be at the top of the draft.
No, I think Miami would be the worst.
You're looking back end of the first round. So, I mean, yeah, you'd have 2 firsts next year if we let that scenario play out. Let's say that you miss the playoffs. You're picking somewhere around, between 14 and, or you're picking somewhere between 11 and maybe 15. And then you're probably picking somewhere in the upper 20s, like 20 to 25. You're probably not going to get a franchise quarterback, but you might. But I mean, if you're the Browns, absolutely, you can take those and jump up and go get, go get one of the 3 guys we talked about earlier, or if somebody else jumps off the page.
There's one great flaw in that plan with Miami. You want to know what it is? You think he's taking a bath about Baker now? You're going to stick him in the same state where, quite honestly, with what we saw from Atlanta in week 1, this is Tampa Bay's division to lose.
Yeah, but I also think what's going on in Atlanta is, Kirk Cousins did not look very good at all. But I think it's kind of yes, they did go out and they signed him to a massive contract, but they actually could be, I don't want to say that they're going to be in the same situation, but could he actually just be, biding time until they're ready to pull the plug and then, go to Penix. If this thing bottoms out for them, go to Penix mid-season, could they actually just wait until next year and they'd be able to see if maybe, hey, Kurt, we'll pay you out half that money, go right off into the sunset?
Probably. But I think Miami would be a bad landing spot, because if Baker continues to play close to the level he did in week 1 for the rest of the season, now you're in the same state of the guy you displaced and you fucked the franchise. They are going to hammer him left, right, and center.
Absolute last question. Going back to what we mentioned a few minutes ago, if this thing completely bottomed out, if you had to make a decision between Stefanski or Barry, who stays, who goes? Realistically, if you're JW Johnson, or if you're Paul DePodesta, what happened.
If I'm Paul DePodesta, the guy who's going is Kevin Stefanski. For this reason, Deshaun did not play that well when he was playing. Really, only one game that stood out as anything more than marginal, and some of that's on coaching and some of that's on scheme. Andrew Berry has put together a roster the last few years that, quite honestly, had the talent to go deep into the playoffs. It's on the guy on the field. The only reason Stefanski won Coach of the Year last year is because Joe Flacco's the one who took him to the fucking playoffs. And they pulled his ass off the couch. That's why he won it. He didn't do anything crazy outside of that.
Flacco would be, I think he'd be a very close second. I think realistically, we actually even said on this show that if they actually could give the NFL Coach of the Year to an assistant coach,
Greg
Jim
Williams.
Schwartz should have won Coach of the Year.
I'm sorry, Greg and Gabe. I'm sorry. Wrong guy. But yeah, Jim Schwartz should have won it. That defense was nasty. But let's get to the last part of the. I knew this was going to take a while. Second best month of the year, boys. It is September. We are 2 weeks until the playoffs, and we don't have anybody in yet. As it speaks right now, the division leaders in Major League Baseball in the American League East, is it still the Yankees or did Baltimore overtake them?
It is still the Yankees at 86 and 63 with a 2-game lead over the Orioles, and it is the Guardians at 85 and 64. It's a 3-game lead over the Royals. Houston is 79 and 68 and 4.5 up on Seattle.
So that's the American League. And in the American League wild card, you have
Baltimore at
Kansas City,
5.5 up. Kansas City is 82 and 67. They are 3.5 games up for the second wild card. And the Minnesota Twins are 78 and 70, and they have a 2.5 game lead over the Tigers for the third and final wild card spot.
Yep, and in the National League, Philadelphia is running and hiding from the National League East at 89 and 59. The Dodgers at 87 and 61 in first place in the National League West, and Milwaukee at 85 and 62 is the de facto champion already of the National League Central.
I also think probably in the next few days we're going to see Milwaukee probably be the first one to clinch. Not just because of the fact that their record is certainly not jumping off the page, even though they are like 4 games behind the Phillies for the best in the National League, just because their lead in the division is so large. It's at 10 with, I want to say, 15 to go, less than 15 to go for most teams.
Yeah, there's 14. I know the Mets have 14 left to play. But right now, the National League wild card is 4 teams separated by 2 games. As the Padres are the number 1 wild card team with a 2-game lead on. They're 2 games up. You have Arizona a game and a half behind them, and the Mets and Braves tied at 81 and 67, going into the final 2 weeks of the season. Now,
actually, to correct you, San Diego is only a half game up on Arizona. The way that you're reading standing is how many games up they are from getting in. So the Diamondbacks are only a half game out of actually taking the number 1 wild card, and the Mets and Braves are a game and a half behind them for clinching.
Okay. So let's talk about the National League first. And again, I have the vested interest there with the Mets. The Mets also have the toughest schedule going in. It was the way the Mets end of season is working. You have 3 in Philadelphia this weekend. You then go to Washington for 3 starting next week.
Actually, they're hosting Washington.
Oh, I'm sorry. Washington comes to Citi Field.
It's a 7-game homestand for them, and then they finish with 6 on the road.
Yep. 3 with Washington, 4 with Philadelphia, 3 in Atlanta, 3 in Milwaukee to finish the year. They have by far the toughest schedule out of all these teams.
The only light at the end of the tunnel that they might actually see is that if Milwaukee has kind of penciled themselves into winning the division and, have either the number 2 or the number 3 seed kind of locked up, you're going to see them, certainly kind of rest some guys. So they might be able to, so the Mets might actually be able to take advantage of that. But let's say we have to see what Milwaukee does. We also
Exactly.
right now Milwaukee is scoreboard watching the Dodgers
Yeah.
because they're chasing them for the number 2.
And Atlanta's beating the Dodgers again, if I read it right.
Mhm.
Yeah. But let's talk about the two teams fighting for the final wild card in the National League for a minute. And let's talk about two teams that have been beaten as shit this year. Atlanta has had injury after injury after injury and kept it going. Losing Ronald Acuna Jr. to another knee injury, losing Spencer Strider to Tommy John, losing who else they lose? Albies is out, or he was for some time. Austin Riley has not been Austin Riley this year. Michael Harris.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just going through the scores. Top 7 in Arizona, Milwaukee 13, Arizona 2.
Damn. Put a ass whooping on the Diamondbacks.
Uh-huh.
San Diego's playing the Giants. That just started.
And god damn it, the White Sox just walked off on the A's.
Fuck. Well, actually, I don't care. Don't lose 120. Let the 62 Mets have that, you bastards. But the Mets took a little bit of a body blow today or yesterday, losing Francisco Lindor, who missed his first game all season today. Speaking of Ronald Acuna, the Mets did something I thought they were going to do at the beginning of the year, and Luis Angel Acuna played shortstop today for the New York Mets. Got his first big league hit. You want to know something funny, Jim? Same exact type of hit his brother got for his first hit. Hard bouncer up the middle. I just think that shit's pretty cool. But Jim, if you had to guess it right now, we're thinking what? Yankees somehow pull the East off and end up as the 1 seed. Gardos get the 2. That leaves Houston at the 3. Does the wild card stay status quo right now?
Well, we actually we said these were bold predictions. Michael, with 15 games remaining, by the time we come to you guys next Saturday, there will be 2 weeks remaining in the regular season. Michael, your bold prediction for the final 2.5 weeks of the regular season.
The 3 wild card teams in the National League are going to be San Diego, the Mets, and the Braves. I think Arizona's going to fall right out of it. They have, I think, the second or third hardest schedule going forward. Their pitching has been inconsistent, as has their lineup. They're taking one on the chin tonight. And unfortunately for the Diamondbacks, they have not played well against teams that are over 500 this year. Giving you this one thing. If they end in a flat-footed tie with the Mets get in because the Mets own the tiebreaker against Arizona and San Diego for that matter. Bold prediction in the American League. I think the Cardinals get hot and pull out the number 1 seed. You said bold.
My bold prediction is the Cleveland Guardians will not win the American League Central Division.
Whoa.
They are 3 games up on Kansas City,
who can't beat anybody better than them right now.
They had to come from behind to beat Tampa, even though it was a 6-1 game. They didn't get hot until late. They got no run support the last 2. And if you take the sweep over the White Sox, who are absolute trash, and 2 of those 3 wins, they had to come from behind late. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers. They need a win to get a split against the Rays. Then you host the Twins, then go on the road to St. Louis, even though St. Louis really doesn't have a whole lot to play for. You host Cincinnati for for 2 games, and you never really play Cincinnati all that well. And then you have to host Houston, who always loves to play spoiler at the end of the year. I am thinking, as inconsistent as the Guardians have been realistically since the All-Star break, I do not believe the Cleveland Guardians. I will predict that the Guardians will find a way to choke away a division lead that they have held for nearly 5.5 months out of this season.
See, here's where I disagree with you, because the Royals have Kansas City, Detroit, San Francisco, the Nationals, and the Braves. That's what's going to help the Cardinals right there. They're going to have to, and Atlanta's fighting for their life, and it's in Atlanta.
Yeah, but the Detroit series is home. San Francisco is home. At Washington, they're garbage.
They're still hanging on.
There's only 5 teams that haven't been eliminated from playoff contention. The Nationals are one of them.
I know. I think I think they're gonna get hot. I think they're gonna do what they did from the beginning of the year and just get hot, and it's gonna piss you off to no end. Here's another bold prediction for you. You ready for this? Dodgers are one and done. I know. Water's wet, sky's blue, Pope's Catholic. I get it.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what these dogs are barking at next door. Shohei Ohtani will hit 60 home runs.
Do you understand the tear he'd have to go on? He's got to hit one every game. Okay. You want to go there?
Okay, Shohei Ohtani will hit 55 home runs. He needs 8.
More doable. Ohtani doesn't get to 50 stolen bases and Lindor wins the MVP.
Homer.
You have to stop the Q-tip when there's resistance.
He's going to win a Gold Glove, go 35-35 with 45 doubles, so he's going to lose the MVP to a fucking DH.
I don't know if you actually caught it, but Dave Roberts said that there is it is not a complete zero possibility that Ohtani does not pitch in the playoffs.
The only thing I'll say about that is,
even if it's a relief, it would definitely be. It would certainly be interesting. Can you imagine him coming out of a pen?
If he closes for them, they win the World Series.
I don't know about that, because who knows, after coming off of that injury, if he's going to be able to get his arm cranked up enough, to throw gas like that.
Yeah, but he's throwing in the bullpen. He's throwing bullpens every couple of days. He's been doing it since the All-Star break, at least. Here's a bold prediction for you. Kodai Senga is ready next week and is the Mets stopper in the bullpen. And the last one I'll give you, even though they secured the number 1 seed in the American League, even though they're right now the number 1 seed in the American League, Aaron Boone is fired by the end of the playoffs.
As their championship drought will reach what?
15 years. 15. The first year with CC, 2009. Buckle up. That's all I can say about it. Buckle up. Jim, we're at 114. Do you want to do it?
We are certainly not going to pull last week and blow straight through. The good thing is what we have in the blast is certainly not going to take up another hour. Probably 30 minutes tops, I would think.
Yeah, tops. And then I have a trivia question for you.
Now we're on the back end.
Back end.
Speaking of which, we will see you guys in the next 5 to 7 minutes.
We'll be back.
You're muted.
How was I muted? Would you do that to me?
No. Did it to yourself.
Damn it.
So before we get into the blast tonight, very, very quickly, as we have not talked to really a single lick of college football, let's go around the country here. The game of the day, the top 25 game of the day, I should say. Number 6 Missouri takes down Boston College 27-21 in a game that they were actually trailing 14-3 midway through the second quarter. Brady Cook goes for 264 yards, throws for 1 touchdown, runs for another. Georgia has just gone up on Kentucky 13-9 in the opening moments of the fourth quarter. We have number 23, Nebraska, up 27-3 on Northern Iowa. Dylan Raiola's thrown for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michael, would you like to actually know what the live in-game moving line is on the Tennessee Kent State game?
I don't even want to know because I saw what the score was.
79. Tennessee has actually got the ball 3rd and goal at the Kent State 6, and they were already up 68-0
Jesus
after
Christ.
3.
Why does Kent State do this to itself?
Yeah, somebody actually put out on Threads as I was going through while we were on halftime. They must actually be really, really in peril with their athletic department if they scheduled 2 massive beat 'em up games this early in the season. Although Kent State was going to be one of the worst teams in the MAC this year, and that's saying something.
Didn't they give Penn State a game? No, I was angry. Sorry.
Number 2 Texas 56-7 over UTSA. Arch Manning comes in after Quinn Ewers gets injured. Number 4 Alabama benefits from Wisconsin's Tyler Van Dyke being injured and rolls over the Badgers 42-10. Number 5 Ole Miss takes down Wake Forest 40-6. Oregon finally shows up for the first time all year, and they'll certainly probably jump a couple of guys above them in the polls, as we didn't have a real massive upset, but beat Oregon State 49-14. Number 10, Miami rolls over Ball State and continuing their momentum 62-0. In the Battle of Utah, the Utes take down the Aggies of Utah State 38-21. Utah ranked number 12. Oklahoma State over Tulsa 45-10 as number 13 rolls on. Number 15, Oklahoma takes down Tulane 34-19. In easily the game of the day, South Carolina led 33. South Carolina and led 24-16 at the half over number 16 LSU, and LSU wins 36-33 on a walk-off field goal.
No. Walk-off
I'm
miss.
sorry, South Carolina missed at the buzzer.
Yeah, and by the way, they took that. They were moving the ball easily.
Yes.
On that last drive. As we actually caught that at the birthday party. And just real quick about Texas. Did you see Arch Manning's 67-yard option run?
I did.
Dude, Peyton was right. The athleticism of Archie skipped a freaking generation.
And the fact that basically now that they've got 2 potential quarterbacks that are going to be absolute, could start for them, because Quinn Ewers is a Heisman candidate, even without the injury. And now if Arch Manning can come in and just be this good, now granted, let's see what happens in 2 weeks when conference play opens. And then to kind of round out the schedule, number 17, Michigan, after their shellacking last week, kind of gets back on track. Downs Arkansas State 28-18. Notre Dame gets themselves righted with a 66-7 win over Purdue. And last night, we actually saw number 14 Kansas State dominate number 20 Arizona 31-7. A couple of other games that are actually, for some reason, showed up on my timeline. Colorado is leading big over Colorado State in a game that you figure somebody has to win.
You're an asshole. Yeah, so college football is pretty.
Vanderbilt just goes down to Georgia State 36-32. So Vanderbilt will no longer be ranked. I'm sorry, will no longer be undefeated. Let me see if there's a couple of other ones out here. Kentucky already moving the ball. They're already out near midfield, trying to answer the Georgia touchdown. Number 23, Nebraska up 27-3 on Northern Iowa. Auburn with a big lead right now on New Mexico. They've just gone to the fourth. Toledo, with about 6 minutes left to go, about ready to polish off Mississippi State and run to 3-0. The Big Ten primetime game of the week, the first real interconference one, now with the shift to NBC. Indiana dominating UCLA 42-13.
Jesus.
The Colorado game is 28-9 for the Buffaloes. And we're going to talk about the Buffaloes here in a minute. TCU about to go to, actually clinging to a 34-28 lead over UCF in a battle, in a conference battle amongst two 2-0 teams in the Big 12. Northwestern up 31-7 on Eastern Illinois. Florida Atlantic going to get themselves their first win of the year, 38-7, leading right now over Florida International. And Houston are going to get themselves their first win, up 26-0 on Rice. And there were a couple of other highlights amongst non-ranked. Illinois goes to 3-0 with a 30-9 win over Central Michigan. Memphis, we can't even really say stunned Florida State, although we did talk about it earlier, 20-12, and Memphis is now 3-0. Florida State drops to 0-3.
I feel bad for Mike Norvell. I'm going to be honest with you.
I feel bad for Mike Norvell, but he's the only person in Tallahassee I feel bad for.
Agreed. And let me state this for the record. I don't care how bad this year was. To overcome the screw job. I mean, this was borderline Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels screw job. We'll call this the Dallas screw job because that's where the committee meets. To overcome the screw job, the amount of guys who entered the portal because of the screw job, and to lose guys to the NFL the way he did. I think this year it's a bad thing to say that this year is on him. I will, however, say this. Anybody who thought DJ, whatever the fuck his last name was the quarterback answer for that team, there's a job for you in Cleveland to find the next one because you're garbage.
Didn't we dub him DJ Gungala Gungala?
But I don't want to call him that only because he doesn't have that going for him.
NC State picks themselves up off the mat after giving up 51 to Tennessee last week with a 30-20 win over Louisiana Tech. A few more games here. Michigan State goes to 3-0 with a 40-0 win over Prairie View A&M. No big surprise there.
Did you see the interception though?
I did. The first post-Pac-12 Apple Cup goes to the Washington State Cougars, 24-19 over Washington.
That was a big game.
Appalachian State, a 21-19 winner over East Carolina. Duke runs themselves to 3-0, going 26-21 over UConn. North Carolina runs to 3-0 with a 45-10 win over North Carolina Central. Virginia Tech, a 37-17 winner over Old Dominion. Liberty is 3-0 with a 28-10 win over UTEP. And just one or two more that I had my eye on here.
Did Troy end up in Iowa?
Texas A&M blows out Florida 33-20 to where Gator faithful were booing Billy Napier off the field.
Did Troy end up beating Iowa?
No, Iowa pulled away late. Basically, Iowa outscored Troy 28-7 in the second half and pulled away for a 38-21 win. Cade McNamara goes for 176 yards. And Keon Johnson, 25 carries, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Okay. Because at some point I saw that Troy was winning that game. So, well, college football. Listen, Jim, I know you're not watching much because of your own personal feelings about it, but I got to tell you something. This season has been interesting and entertaining, and somewhat sad all at the same time.
Realistically, if you look ahead to next week, it's there's still a lot. There's some garbage out there.
Oh yeah, Buckeyes
There's-
play Marshall next week.
Yeah, it's another key, matchup amongst MAC schools there. So
That's hilarious, by the way. It's, you know what? I look at it this way. I don't see it. They start the home and home in Texas next year.
Michael,
They get past with me.
Michael, the marquee game of next week to show you how bad next week is going to be is USC heading to the Big House. That's 11 versus 17 as it stands now. There are no other ranked top 25 matchups. I take that
Dude.
back. Utah, Oklahoma State will be next week. That's 12 against 13 as the Big 12 opens conference play.
Dude.
Tennessee will play Oklahoma. That's something where I see Tennessee, even though Tennessee's got to go into Norman, I like Tennessee in that game.
I do too. I will say this. I think Lincoln Riley's going to go into the Big House and beat the fuck out of Michigan.
There's a couple of other decent ones out there. 3-0 Illinois against on their way to 3-0 Nebraska. Vanderbilt, who lost today, will head to Columbia to play the Tigers. UCLA and LSU will be next week. Marshall and Ohio State, as we talked about again, another that'll be for first place in the MAC. NC State will actually head to Clemson. Arkansas State and Iowa State, Penn State against Kent State, Miami of Ohio against Notre Dame.
Watch for Miami to give Notre Dame a game.
Considering Miami was actually picked by several to be the favorite to win the MAC, and they are 0-2 right now.
Really?
Yes.
Besides Ohio State, who's playing well in the MAC right now? Bowling Green.
Toledo and the number 25 ranked Northern Illinois Huskies, who are off this week and will play Buffalo next week.
Good for Northern Illinois, by the way. And I have not had a chance to read the sports note yet.
Michael, trivia question before you give me one. Since 2000, there have only been 4 schools to go on the road and win at both Notre Dame Stadium and Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. Can you name them?
Georgia.
1.
Is it Louisiana Tech or Louisiana Lafayette?
No.
Which one did Saban lose to? Louisiana Monroe?
No.
All right, so I'm
They
wrong.
won in Tuscaloosa. They did not win in Notre Dame.
Okay. Win at Notre Dame and win.
I'll give you a hint.
Texas?
Three of these schools are now in the same conference.
Georgia? Texas?
No.
Really?
Texas has not won at Notre Dame.
LSU?
No.
Auburn?
No. Alabama is not. I'm sorry. Auburn has not played Notre Dame in Notre Dame Stadium.
Florida?
No. You get 2 more.
Okay. Am I barking up the right tree for SEC?
You are.
Tennessee.
2.
Ha-ha. I got nothing.
Oklahoma.
Really?
Northern Illinois.
No shit.
And and Northern Oklahoma is the only one not from a Power 5, now Power 4 conference
That's
who
awesome.
have done it.
That's awesome. James,
Michael,
why is the date September 14th, 1990 significant?
I saw this earlier and I forgot. I didn't pay close enough attention to it.
It is the first and only time we have ever seen a father and son go back to back and hit home runs in a Major League Baseball game. Yes, that's right. We are 34 years removed from Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. going back to back against the California Angels on that September night of 1990.
I thought you were. I thought for a minute you were actually going to say Derek Jeter and Pedro Martinez.
No, no, no. He said the Yankees were his daddy, not just Jeter. You don't level up for that. You don't level up for that. Knock your shit off.
So hopefully by the time we come to you guys in the next few weeks, we're going to have an official intro for the blast. But Mike, let's jump into it. We're not going to spend too much time on it because a couple of things we could have brought them up in the last segment, but we're going to kind of just whip through these here.
All right, so let's start with the first one. I feel bad for that kid. What is his name? Brayton. Hate it? No.
Bowden Francis.
Bowden Francis. And I am sorry I couldn't remember that. Within 18 days of each other, Bowden Francis had 2 no-hitters broken up by home runs. One against the Angels where Taylor Ward hit a home run, and then of course the other day against the Mets, Francisco Lindor hits a dinger to tie it, and the Mets go on to score 6 runs in that 9th inning to get a W and take a series in Toronto. So first of all, let me tell you something about this kid. He has got some stuff. He throws low 90s, but he knows how to locate it. I mean, he's a pitcher, dude. I mean, we see a lot of throwers these days who just try and throw the ball as hard as they fucking can for as long as they can. This dude pitches. He mixes it up well. He changes speeds on almost everything he throws. He's got a straight changeup and a split, which you don't really ever see guys do both of those. Usually you see a split change, kind of like a ghost fork from Senga or what Tyler McGill throws. And again, I know it's a lot of Mets references, but that's where I pay the most attention. He threw 2 bad pitches the entire game against the Mets. Obviously, the one to Lindor, which wasn't terrible, but he missed location. The other one he missed location was also to Lindor, and it almost ripped Vladdy's glove in half. I mean, it was smoked. But he is going to be a problem.
Can we talk about like 3 young pitchers who had themselves a fantastic week this past week? First of all, we just get done talking about him. Kumar Rocker makes his MLB debut.
Yes.
Those 4 innings and throws 7 strikeouts with the Rangers.
And his sliders
in his first professional non-rehab type appearance since TJ.
Yeah. He looked great. And this is a guy, high publicized. The Mets drafted him a few years ago. They didn't like the medicals. They didn't sign him. He goes back to Vanderbilt, pitches, gets drafted by Texas. And then, of course, literally that year has Tommy John. Was a part of a great staff at Vanderbilt with Jack Leiter, who is also in the big leagues.
I believe also through the last no-no in CWS history, which I do remember writing about on the Sports Note a few years ago.
Yep. And I will say this. I said it to you the other day, but even DeGrom looked good last night. if that three-headed monster is healthy next year of Jack Leiter, Jacob DeGrom, and Kumar Rocker, Texas is going to be an issue.
And the third young pitcher, Cleveland Guardians young pitcher Joey Cantillo, called up from Columbus earlier in the day, and then ends up going into this late into the ball game, goes into the sixth inning with perfection on his mind, and then kind of comes unravel to where he loses the perfecto, the no hitter, and the shutout all in the sixth inning. But it is the latest any Cleveland Guardians or Indians pitcher has actually gone with a no-no or perfection since Len Barker's perfect game back in the early 80s.
Yeah, we had some.
It was the second latest, I should say. The latest was 7 1/3. And Cantillo went 6 2/3.
Who did that? The 7 1/3. Was it Kluber or was it Bieber?
They put the graphic up, and I don't remember who it was. I didn't catch it long enough.
It was probably one of those two.
All I know is I actually started thinking, oh God, are the wheels going to fall off, because they were up 5-3, and then he gives up a bloop double and then a home run on like 2 of the next 5 pitches.
Oh,
I'm thinking to myself, here we go.
You would hang out with me too much.
Yeah.
Listen, baseball's youth movement this year, when you talk about both Rookie of the Year races, are not over. It's Jackson Merrill and Paul Skeens in the National League. It's Austin Wells, and who's the outfielder from Baltimore?
Not Jackson Holiday.
No, he plays second base.
Please stand by.
Talk amongst yourselves. I can't remember what his name is.
Anthony Santander.
No, he's not a rookie.
Colton Cowser.
That's
Austin Slater, Cedric Mullins.
Colton Cowser. Real quick, 13-12 Georgia, 6:25 left in the fourth quarter. Kentucky has the ball.
Milwaukee is now only up 13-6 on Arizona, and they have bases loaded in the bottom of the 8th with 1 out.
71-0 Kent State.
Come on, Tennessee, cover. Can't read, can't write, Kent State.
Exactly. So the second thing there, Colorado has a drive.
Let's stay with the baseball, because we can have some fun with Colorado.
Yes, we can, but let's talk about the Twins going into the Wayback Machine and drafting Crash Davis.
Get a hit, Crash.
Shut up.
Oh, wait, don't you mean?
Tip of the cap to the sporting Sith himself, who I affectionately call Crash Davis, because he did it once. Apparently, this guy, did you hear the whole story?
Yes.
Oh, this is great. So he was telling people what they were throwing. The other team actually ratted him out, and then the Twins released him. And when he was asked by his teammates why he was doing it, he looked him in the face and said, "I'm just ready for the season to be over."
Yep.
Wow.
His name, Derek Bender. It was their Class A affiliate. And this happened in a game on September 6th, in the second game of a doubleheader.
And they're going for a playoff spot.
Yes.
Dude, what kind of an asshole do you have to be? See, I thought people were shaking him off. And that's why Crash Davis was telling people. Do you think a guy hit a home run? He said, "Oh, look at that. He hit the bull. He gets a free steak." Oh, my God. Pac-12 expansion. Who'd they add, Jim?
According to reports, it was here and it disappeared. It's funny, it's because not only did Washington beat Washington State in the Apple Cup, but they claimed the Pac-12 championship today. Over the next 2 years, this is wrong. This is an old report. Why did it bring me here? As things stand, its membership will be at 8 in 2 years. Air Force, Hawaii, Nevada, New Mexico State, San Jose State, UNLV, Utah State, and Wyoming. So essentially, that's actually where the Mountain West is going to be, I should say.
Gotcha.
When because the Pac-12 is really, I don't think they're expanding as far as people think. Wednesday night news emerged that Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State will leave the Mountain West to join Oregon State and the Pac and Washington State next year. And there's also talk that they are going to be targeting Tulane and or Memphis.
That would be a feather in Ed's cap to get into a power conference.
Potentially UNLV. UTSA, that's University of Texas San Antonio. There's also talk that they could be trying to target Cal and Stanford to come back, who, let's also be honest, only left because everybody else left the conference high and dry.
Where did Cal and Stanford go?
Didn't they
They're
go
not
to the
Big
Big
Ten.
12?
Maybe.
Oh,
Okay.
wait. They went to the ACC.
Are we sure about that? By the way, Kentucky's driving.
Yeah, they went to the ACC.
Well, the ACC's got its own problems with everybody trying to get out of there too. They went to the ACC. Oh, I wonder if they got more out of the transfer portal than Dabo did. So
Because let's also, I mean, they're certainly the better athletic schools, but I mean, you figure they're not football powerhouses, they're not basketball powerhouses, at least in men's basketball.
yeah,
Baseball, they would be. I think honestly, them looking for a way out of the ACC to maybe go back to the Pac-12 might not be the worst thing in the world for them to be able to get back to 10.
no, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Because let's also be honest, for the teams that they're bringing in, this is not your same Boise State team. Ian Johnson, Ryan Dinwiddie, and Chris Peterson are not walking through that tunnel.
I love how we paraphrase Rick Pitino a lot. I will say this about the Pac-12: it feels bad that they're not around anymore. Especially, and now mind you, this is being a Big Ten homer and being a traditionalist at some point. The Rose Bowl being Pac-12, Big Ten, or well, Pac-10, Big Ten, what it was in 12, and why it's not the Pac-18, I don't fucking know, or the Big 18, I don't fucking know. But yeah, traditionally the Rose Bowl game being that it's something you look forward to every January 1st,
Right.
no
I
matter
mean,
no matter who you rooted for.
it was the same thing. The Cotton Bowl, you had Big 12 and Ace, either
SEC.
it was SEC. A couple of years it was Big East when they
Mhm.
still had football. It's Gator Bowl was always Big 10 versus SEC.
Mhm.
You don't get a whole lot of this anymore. It's when I was doing the sports note, Northern Illinois is after their big win against after their big win against Notre Dame last week, they're in the driver's seat in the MAC, and really, there's a lot of people thinking it's going to be three teams that it's going to come down to in that group of five. It could be Northern Illinois, it could be Memphis, and it also could be Texas State. To crash the party in the playoff here if they start running out, but they were 7-6 last year, and that seventh win came in a bowl game. So,
Yeah,
because there's so many bowl games, you're taking teams that once they get to 6 wins, even if they're 6-7, 6 wins automatically gets them eligible, for and then you had one team last year completely opt out,
basically. So it's not having the Pac-12 to me is a little sacrilegious, but As I knocked the empty bottle of soda over. Sorry. I can knock stuff over if you got dogs barking. We're even. Um, but the long and short of it being, we need to get that conference back, and if you gotta fill it in with guys that you're going to give a chance to get into a playoff win, good for them.
It's absolutely not going to be a power conference anymore, but it's there.
No.
I mean, certainly enough to be able to get them, into group of 6, so to speak.
Yeah, and let's talk about where we've come with the Pac-12 in the last 10 years. You went from the first college football playoff championship game being the Pac-10 champion or Pac-12 champion against the Big Ten champion to the last one being the same thing, and now it's gone. I mean, no one talks about that.
I mean, remember the games that we played growing up? It was the Big 8. It was the Pac-8s. It was, it was miraculous when it went to the Pac-10. We still had the Big East with football.
Yeah, that was when Rutgers was good.
Miami came out of the Big East. Yeah. Before the Big East became really a basketball only school, and realistically, if you think about it now, it's the Catholic Conference.
Basically,
Providence, your DePauls, your Georgetowns, etc., your Villanovas. Did you see the highlight of Villanova's football team today?
No.
They were Villanova's. They play in 1AA, and they're ranked 10th. And they were losing to Delaware State. I want to say it was either Delaware State, and they're going into drive to be able to cut it to a 1-score game with about 3 minutes to go. Their quarterback is on his way down and just throws it up in the air, and it almost looks like he does a cartwheel and kicks the ball straight up in the air for a touchdown. It was it probably was more zany than the interception that you saw. I will go back and I will find the clip and I will send it to you sometime tomorrow morning.
Okay. So let's talk about what happened in Colorado.
Folsom, when did they relocate Huntington Bank Field out to Folsom, Colorado?
I mean, I don't know. But some hillbilly, probably drunk, drove his car in the field, got out of his car. Did you see the amount of shit in the bed of that truck?
Yes.
That was so bad. But he gets out and he does one of these. You drunk bastard.
The best drive outside up until today was the best drive that Colorado had all season.
You are such a hater.
Realist.
I'm not saying you don't have good reason. I'm just saying you're a hater. There's nothing wrong with being a hater. I mean, I'm a hater at times too. It depends on certain things.
I like being a hater.
I like Josh Hader. So just a quick update right now. Georgia stood pat on that drive on defense. Now they have the ball deep in their own territory, and they just iced the game. So Georgia, who's supposed to be this world-beating team, went into Kentucky and won by a point probably. That doesn't tell me world beater, or it tells me Kentucky's better than what we're seeing.
I mean, it still says there's 3 minutes to go on my end here.
It's 2 minutes.
I got 2:53 and they're at midfield.
It's 2:33 on here because I'm actually watching it on there.
Because also remember there is the 2-minute warning in college now.
No, I know, but they're just before the 2-minute warning. Carson Beck hit a big, they had him deep.
Yeah, like a 33-yarder.
Yeah, and now, dude, if Georgia can't run the ball against Kentucky,
it's
what
actually
the fuck are they going to do?
Name the last time we didn't have some sort of marquee West Coast game on Saturday night too. There's no legitimate game to be able to stay up and watch late that kicks off, that would have kicked off 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's true. What was the Colorado beat Colorado State?
It's 28-9. They're under a minute to go. Colorado State's got it at their own 34. So basically, yes.
Okay. But Jim, I believe it to be time.
I'm actually trying to see if there are the late games tonight are Fresno State and New Mexico State. They're midway through the first, and then Cal San Diego State.
Yeah. See, the thing is now you're not going to have the late matchups because the Pac-12 isn't around, and the marquee names in the old Pac-12 are now in the Big Ten. They're going to be the big noon games. They're going to be 3:30 games, or they're going to be primetime games, which is what 6:30, 5:30, no 4:30 on the West Coast. Because I want to say the Oregon-Ohio State game is at 4:00.
Yeah, I can look that up here in a second because I would like to add. I would like to take a look into that here for a moment. Another piece of news that came out just before we went live. It's official for UFC 309. John Jones and Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight championship at Madison Square Garden on November 16th.
Also, the Cleveland Cavaliers have signed forward/guard Isaac Okoro to a 3-year, $38 million contract. The core four has stayed intact in Cleveland. So they're giving their new head coach, what's his name? It's escaping me.
Kenny Atkinson.
They're giving Kenny Atkinson the core that got them to the playoffs the last two years. And imagine the on-ball defense with the kid they got in the draft and Okoro. If they ever at the
Sign and trade.
You really think it's gonna be a sign and trade?
Yep.
No shit. That pissed me. Fuck that shit. God damn it.
I don't think it is. I think it will be.
All right.
I think it'll be something that you probably look to see him moved closer to the deadline, potentially.
Well, then it's not a sign and trade.
It's sign and then trade later.
Oh, okay. It's like if you don't hit and run, you run then hit. You know what's funny? I look weird without my glasses on too. Steph said to me the other day, I didn't have them on. You look funny without them on. Okay. Thanks, babe. I think. What are you writing down now?
Mind your business.
Shut up. But James, after that little interlude, I believe it is time. It is time for band practice, James.
Just push the button already? No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YC Translator on the Wise Guy Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for the 51st time, we get it going. The YZ Translator, the favorite segment of the night, because it is the final segment of the night. And I bring you back to some of the things we've said in the past, as I always do. The best of the best being Kyrie Irving and his sing-song douche canoe. And also so many in between. But the Hamburglar is also one that I'm really becoming liking more as we go on. And of
Because
course,
it was used multiple times that night.
By the same person for two guys he can't stomach. And I will say this: Dwayne Johnson is a shitty actor. So let's dive in, James. The Chiron, please. Do you understand?
Could have been worse, because now that song's going to be stuck in your head all night. And the only thing that could have made it worse is this is the song that doesn't.
Do you know they sell something you can remote control and hit a button and it's the screaming fucking sheep? Oh, I love it. And no, we have no respect for ourselves. So I will start And James, I'm going to go with a coaching name for you. And that first name, what was that?
One.
Jesus Christ. James, your first name in the Wisey Translator is Mike Norvell.
I mean, if his players did it, if I'm going to paraphrase Jim Rome, when the going gets tough, quit.
I would say for Mike Norvell, learn how to recruit a fucking quarterback.
Michael,
James.
the names I'm going to give you tonight have absolutely nothing to do with sports.
Oh, fuck.
So, Michael, your first name in the YZ Translator tonight,
Two.
La Steroid Daddy Hack the Fourth.
He hits swamp donkeys and banks skanks. And I'm not paraphrasing. When it comes to La Steroid Daddy Hack the Fourth, I can only quote the one-time great philosopher Jason Giambi when he was speaking of his Oakland A's teams, when he said, "Play like all stars, party like rock stars, and hammer like porn stars." And that son of a bitch wore a gold thong when he wasn't hitting. Oh God! Now you messed me up because I was going to give you something out of left field for the second one, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go down the line with this one. Actually, no. I do have one for you.
Three.
What the fuck is that?
It'll all come together in a minute.
James, your second name in tonight's Wisey Translator is a dual one. And I would like you to please give me the name of the tag team of Cody Rhodes and the tribal chief Roman Reigns.
Trying to think of a tag team to mash up together. Part-time and full-time.
Very good. Very good.
I care and I don't. Beneficial to everyone involved because it takes more TV time away from Phil Brooks.
Apparently, he's got Hell in a Cell coming up against McIntyre.
Yeah. Did you see? I don't know if it scored. If you took notice, Kevin Owens had the greatest tag on SmackDown last night in history.
Is that when he ran out of the ring and jumped back in? I love the fact that they were both doing the Randy Orton thing, and then he hits the stunner, Orton hits the RKO, and that's how they won.
Why nobody for the 45 years of watching wrestling, we've not seen anybody try that before.
I don't know.
That's brilliant. Michael.
Four.
Your second name in the YZ Translator tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris.
In the words of CNN analyst, a female CNN analyst, she snatched that motherfucker's toupee. Instead of snatching wigs, she snatches toupee. What did the other guy say? Spank that ass.
Michael, why I watched him earlier this week. Michael something or other on MSNBC. Yep.
We don't like to get political on here other than making jokes, but I will say this.
Quite frankly, I'm a worthless fucking fat ass who shits his pants.
Yeah, that's about it.
This former president.
Oh, I sent that to somebody. I am going to save it because I want to get a little serious for a minute. And I mentioned this to you earlier in the week.
Well, very, very quickly.
Real quick.
Here, I'll
actually let's do your thing first.
I'll put a bow and I will close up the YZ translator tonight.
So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life.
It sounds like something an idiot has on his luggage. And what's the next scene? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's amazing. That's
The same combination of my luggage. We've been waiting for a way to put Spaceballs on the soundboard, and I think I just found it.
And it's funny that you go there with where I'm about to go. This past week, the sports world lost an icon, but not in the way you would think. Earlier this week, at 93 years old, the world lost James Earl Jones. And we, of course, the segue there from Spaceballs, Star Wars, what have you, pretty easy to do. But maybe the greatest speech in sports movies ever that was written, because obviously Gary Cooper giving the luckiest man speech in Pride of the Yankees, Lou Gehrig said those words.
Herb Brooks, yeah.
The Herb Brooks one, those words were said. What James Earl Jones said in Field of Dreams not only is very true, but it was also, I've watched it 5 or 6 times in the last few days, and it still gives me goosebumps to this day. To lose, by the way, did you see he signed an agreement with Lucasfilm and Disney that they are allowed to use old clips and AI to generate his voice so that Darth Vader can live on?
Yes.
Which phenomenally smart, and also a gift that will keep on giving for many years to come. For one generation, Darth Vader is gone. For another, Mr. Myrtle is gone. And for another, Mufasa is gone. And it was rough. I mean, when a celebrity goes, you feel something because it's your childhood, what have you. When Robin Williams went, that busted me up a little bit. When James Earl Jones went, it was like, damn, what is going on? And I want to get to your stuff now that you were telling me about, because that's happy stuff to end it on. But I will say this. People will come, James. Oh, people will most definitely come.
Well, we're actually, I got a little bit of an announcement, something that I told Mike earlier, and I think is going to be pretty cool. But first, let's actually talk next week. We'll be back with you guys. Same bad time, same bad channel. We'll certainly be talking, hopefully, at least somebody clinching a playoff berth in Major League Baseball with their win tonight. The Guardians' magic number for clinching a playoff spot is technically at 5. Realistically, it's at 4 because they own some tiebreakers. So we're going to definitely have a couple of teams clinched by then. We'll probably have a few more eliminated. We could actually see the Chicago White Sox have the all-time loss record by then. We'll have some NFL on the table. Michael, Wednesday, we have NHL training camps opening, which I am very much looking forward to, because coming to a YouTube and Twitch channel in early October. Watch along with JC Blue Note as I actually will be live streaming on my YouTube and Twitch page on October 15th, the St. Louis Blues home opener against the Minnesota Wild. And you'll also see my alter ego JC Blade Note as the Buffalo Sabres will open their home schedule on October 10th against the Los Angeles Kings. Now, the Sabres will actually play 2 regular season games against the New Jersey Devils on back-to-back days, October 4th and 5th, but they are going to be part of the global series, so they will be overseas when those games happen in the middle of the afternoon here in the United States. But I'm actually going to broadcast their actual home openers. And if time allows and everything, I might even think about, doing the Islanders or possibly the Jets. I got to see where everything fits in. That October 15th game against the Wild for the Blues, Mike and I already talked about it off air. That's going to be tough for me because that's also the season premiere of FBI and FBI International, which is like one of the only, days of the week where I back everything up, for, because I don't miss my FBIs.
Well, speaking of watch along, should we announce the 12th?
Yes, also on October 12th, which will be a Saturday night, at least for part of the game, we are actually going to be doing a watch along for the Ohio State Oregon game. And we'll actually have more information about that as that gets closer. But that's actually something that I'm going to experiment on. Now, if the October 10th game with the Sabres, doesn't go well, I may not do the October 15th game. But it might be something that I might actually try and do a couple of times through the year. And we may actually be doing some more, watch alongs at some point this year.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's a lot of big games coming up. One just ended in Kentucky, it looks like. There's a little bit of controversy, but it looks like it's going to be a 13-12 win for Georgia at Kentucky. Jim, honestly, I think this drops them at a number 1.
I don't know because I know that Texas was impressive enough.
Texas has a ranked win.
They do, but I mean, if you look at the overall polls here, as I'm actually getting them pulled up, as it stands right now, Georgia had 54 first place votes. Texas had 4, and they actually had a 70 vote lead in the AP top 25, and it was about 60 in the coaches poll where they had 50 first place votes. Ohio State had 3, Texas had 1. I think Texas gains a little bit of ground in both polls. I think Ohio State being inactive, falls back a little bit. I think Alabama kind of righting the ship. I'm not saying they're going to clip Ohio State for 3rd because they were over 140 votes behind, but I could definitely see something where, you're going to see things get a little bit tighter in the top 6 here. But I don't think Georgia's struggling enough against Kentucky, which is a conference win on the road, is going to be enough to drop them out of number 1.
Let me say this, and then we'll bid our goodbyes for the evening. It's Kentucky, and it's not basketball. I know they're a better team the last few years playing football. However, this is a Georgia team that is supposed to be steamrolling people. How do you not steamroll Kentucky, whether it's on their field or not? This here's your comparison. Ohio State's number 1, big win early, win handily second game against a garbage team, go into Michigan State and only win by a point. Tell me they wouldn't drop out of number 1.
Because if you look at Kentucky's record, they shut out Southern Miss in their opener, and then get their doors blown off at home against South Carolina. And this is, I mean, I don't know whose butt they had to kiss to get their first 4 games of the season in Lexington, because they'll actually host Ohio next week.
Mm-hmm.
before they go on the road to Ole Miss, and then reality slaps them in the face that that's 2 top 5 teams within 3 weeks, and oh yeah, they're also on the road against Tennessee and Texas later on this year.
Yeah, and it just went final because they had a review because they had let the clock all the way down, but they were supposed to stop it for a first down. But yeah, that showed some weakness with Georgia. I fully believe that. But we will see you guys next week, 9 p.m. on the Wise Guys channel. As Jim said, same bat time, same bat channel. James, have a good week. I'll probably talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, it's we'll definitely talk it. I mean,
Ooh, especially about yeah.
yeah, quite honestly, don't be the least bit surprised if this is not the last time. If you guys end up seeing us in some capacity before then, because even let's say something happens tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, whenever it might be, even if Mike can't really come on camera, we might actually go live with some breaking news if something about that happens. Even if I've got to, even if I've got to bring Mike in on the phone.
Yeah,
So
that'll happen.
we will absolutely see you guys next week. Hopefully we're not breaking in with news, because hopefully that means kind of the ship's been righted a little bit. But it would be kind of cool for to have our first breaking news edition of the Wise Guys.
At least sports wise. I mean, we've broken non-sports news on the Wise Guys before.
Yeah, because I'm actually speculating about if the hockey watch-alongs go well. I mean, do I possibly do it for a Browns game? Because I haven't done my reacts since 2022, and really don't want to, have to put together the stats and everything, to go live within 30 minutes thereafter. But I think a watch-along could actually be pretty cool for like Steelers week or something like that, or maybe the Browns Bills game later this year.
Oh, they got Buffalo this year, huh?
I believe so, but let me get through, the first week in October first, and see if that's going to be a trend here.
May it all go well, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Have a great night, everyone.